Hello, welcome to Pre-Primary Sources. I'm Liz Nolasco, and I'm here with Heather Bernt-Santy.
Hey, that's me.
We are talking about a frequently repeated claim that I've seen online. Basically, I will say that I am biased. I have two young children. I'm on Reddit a lot, but the overarching opinion of the Reddit verse seems to be that there is no benefit to early care and education settings prior to age 3. And so Heather and I were going to kind of talk about our initial reactions to that, sort of the cultural expectations and thoughts that it comes from, and what a little snippet of the research says. So Heather, why, when I put this out into the nerdiverse, did this call to you?
Well, because it's also something I've heard, and I heard a lot, but also I was a working parent with children under 3 in childcare, and I was, for most of my direct care career, working with infants and toddlers. Um, and I am technically still contract faculty with 0 to 3, and it just comes up in a lot of my contexts that this would be something that either makes me defensive or feel like offending. I hear it.
Yeah, so we're coming at it from roughly the same
Yeah.
same side of things. I've done a
Yeah.
lot. A lot of my direct care was with birth to 3-year-olds, and
Yeah.
I feel like I had pretty good relationships with those kids. I feel like they did well in my care, and
Mhm. Yeah.
um, also two young children who've been in extra parental care since prior to a year old. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
we all just want to think that we're doing the best we can for our kids, right?
Exactly. And I mean, when we're on the other side of it, we want to feel like we're doing the best we can for other people's kids.
Right.
It's all over us. It's all over us.
Yes, exactly.
So, but can I ask you the Reddit threads? What do
Yeah.
you call them in Reddit? Reddit what's? What are they,
I
threads?
think
Are
they're
they
threads,
forums?
posts.
Threads? I go to Reddit if Google gives me Reddit results for something, but is it like practitioners saying it? Is it parents saying it? Like where's it
Yeah,
coming
so
from
there
in
was a
Reddit?
very recent post in the ECE professionals forum
Mhm.
where someone made very large claims about never wanting to send their children to early childhood programs, certainly not for full days. And,
Mhm.
they said that a lot of people who've talked to feel the same. A lot of folks who've worked in early childhood do not want to send their children to early childhood programs. And I thought that that was interesting. And I wonder about significant self-selection bias there, because I think that a lot of the times when I've heard that, it's from people who have worked in professional settings but don't necessarily consider themselves early childhood professionals.
Mhm. Yeah.
So folks who have maybe, in high school or college have worked in the field but have not necessarily studied it.
Hmm.
And that goes both ways, right? It's very,
Hmm.
I have certainly, as an observer for programs, gone in and gone, oh, nope, would not want my child in here. And if that was my only experience of early childhood environments,
Yes.
then sure, that makes a lot of sense. And as a professional, having been in multiple environments, having seen a lot of different programs with a wide variety of practices, but a lot of really wonderful, high quality, responsive,
Hmm.
respectful programs, I think that's different than someone who worked for 6 weeks at Kentucky Fried Children and says, I'm never putting my kid here.
Yes. Right. Uh-huh. Yeah, agreed.
Now, we're also coming to this as Americans in a
Hmm.
time when there is a significant social push for a parent, specifically mom, to stay home and raise children.
Hmm.
And at a time when there's not a lot of, at the federal level, there hasn't been any progress towards any kind of paid parental leave or guaranteed
Hmm.
parental leave, or there, we do finally have the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, but even that is not as great protections as other places have. So
Hmm.
if you are a birthing parent, you are, it is very possible that you will be penalized for having children. And
Hmm.
it is possible that you'll be pushed out of the workforce for having children, whether or not that is your desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, putting money where their mouth is, right? The people who are you say they're actively trying to push those parents out of the workforce, and they're doing it by taking away financial supports, not
Right.
just by not enacting new parental leave stuff, but by taking away
Oh,
support
absolutely.
that families need and that childcare programs need, or whatever your situation is for using care outside your home. It's just policy and money making it harder.
Yeah, exactly. When we're cutting funds from childcare, it's making the decision much more difficult, and it's
Yeah.
deprofessionalizing, right? There's obviously
Hmm.
this ongoing conversation about, are we professionals? Is the field professionalized? But actively removing those supports is explicitly and systematically removing, I don't want to say progress towards professionalization, because I know we've talked
Hmm.
about this at length on your
Yeah.
podcast and how
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the goal, but it's certainly removing the supports for building a strong field, whether or not that is a
Hmm.
profession or not.
Hmm.
I do also want to note here that a couple the articles that I'm going to talk about later that reference cortisol and young children in childcare both come from Norway, where parents have a combined 48 weeks of leave in connection with a child being born or adopted. So
Yeah.
that is going to change a lot of what we're seeing. It's harder to find this in an American context. If I do find some
Hmm.
later, I'll put it in the show notes. But we don't have the funding for care. We're not giving the funding for anybody researching the care. So this is
Yeah.
cobbled together as best as I can.
Yeah. And it's always so interesting to me when I bring up Norway or Finland or, any of those places that have different results from their I don't know, policies, decisions. And American folks will say, yeah, but that's socialism. It wouldn't work
Right.
here. I was like, okay,
It,
could we make it work here?
we're just going to ignore
We're,
World War II for the purposes of this conversation. Yeah, no, exactly. It's so socially dependent. So I do want to acknowledge that, because I think
Mhm.
if somebody listening, you know, hears the results and goes, well, yeah, but that's in a different, I know it's in a different
Right.
social context. Bear with me, please.
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and then the
Perhaps they
other
could
piece
be
of this,
replicated by a change in
right?
social context. Sorry.
That would be lovely. No. And then the other piece of this is, while we are removing financial and structural support for childcare and removing assets that could keep birthing parents in the workforce, we are also, at the same time, a lot of early childhood professionals who might make that same claim that children don't benefit prior to 3 years old have also seen a lot of claims that for children coming from low socioeconomic status, it is beneficial. And before we started recording, I sort of was glib about this and said, but for poor kids, we're better than their moms. But I mean, it's
Mhm.
true. That's what a lot of people seem to think, right?
Right.
And there is some evidence, right, that targeted programs like Early Head Start or Head Start, right, they are intended to um, quote unquote catch children up, right? There's this belief of the culture of poverty, and children are coming from this great disadvantage where additional people coming into their lives serve them better than their own families. And so that's an issue, right?
Yes,
That's
a little bit of an issue, right?
we're not
Yeah.
looking at the many ways that people exist and learn and
Hmm.
are, when we're
Yeah.
just looking at these very small checklists and very discrete skills, and completely ignoring all of the benefits that children can get from being with their own families.
Parental rights, unless I don't approve of your parents.
Right. Right. But then on the other hand, like I do want to be cognizant of my own bias in the other direction, right? Like
Hmm.
childcare for
See.
all,
Yeah.
except, not also, right? So I
Yes.
guess just being comfortable sitting in the tension, and every individual situation is different. And the
Mm.
bottom line is, if you are a working parent and you have access to quality childcare, and if we're going to touch on the word quality, I know that's a big one too. Um,
What are you trying to do?
you know, I know I'm trying to blow up Heather's brain right now, actually. Specialization, quality. Right? What makes sense for your family?
Yeah.
Will you have a roof over your head if both parents aren't working? will you have quality of life, right? Like as a working parent
Hmm.
who works in early childhood, I actually really appreciate having someone else on my team, right? Taking care of
Hmm.
my children and seeing things that I don't see, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Being that extended family that I moved away from when my kids were
yeah,
very small, it was helpful to have that. And I was one of those folks who felt like um, a better parent for being able to also have my work and my family and my children and others who would sort of be just like you said on a team with me about as we pursued all of it.
yeah, absolutely. So looking at the claims that I generally see, one of the big ones is attachment, right? So we have in early childhood, we use this buzzword of, primary caregiver, right? And that is heard very differently by parents who are not in the field.
Yeah.
So you can say, I will be your child's primary caregiver. And then they say, what are you talking about? I am my child's primary
Right.
caregiver.
Yes.
Right. So there are just some ways that we can adapt language to convey the message
Yeah.
better or more thoroughly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that kind of buzzword effect. We hear a buzzword, we make our assumption, and we don't dig any deeper. So we hear attachment and we hear um, one person, or we assume, one important relationship or
Yes.
one person that I can be attached to, instead of thinking, huh, wonder what that means. Wonder what that could look like.
Right. Yeah. The idea of multiple attachments is not spoken about, right? And even in the popular, I feel like it's become such an adult relationship buzzword too. And it's all about, how did you relate to your mom or your dad or, whoever specifically raised you rather than like the whole ecosystem, or
Mhm.
to borrow a bond from Brenner, that would be the mesosystem,
I
right?
was
The
just
outside the
doing
home.
some
Yeah.
Bronfenbrenner work earlier today.
Well, there you go.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so the child is at the center, but there are so many external relationships that can be really positive.
Hmm.
And while we know a lot of the detrimental effects of children who are changing caregivers frequently, children who are moved between, for example, foster homes or who don't
Hmm.
have housing or caregiver stability, that does have detrimental effects. And having a group of consistent caregivers is really, really good for children. And there's some research, some thought about the role of allo parents, right? So
Hmm.
not parents, but family, extended family,
Yeah.
non-related, non-parental caregivers who support the child and the family in a way that is broadly beneficial to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really fascinated with the allo parenting conversation right now.
Yes.
Um, yeah. I was reading a book called The Evolved Nest that was looking at like parenting in the animal world, child rearing, young rearing in the animal world. And the elephant chapter was my favorite because they are allo parents.
What was it called? Something the nest?
Evolved Nest.
Evolved nest.
I can't remember the author's name.
I'll put it on
Starts
my
with an
list. I'll
A.
put it in the notes.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh, and then so the other piece that I saw in the argument against a benefits childcare prior to age 3 actually comes from Parton's stages of play. I saw a
Yeah.
few people make the claim that because children supposedly can't play cooperatively before they're 3 years old, and supposedly the primary benefits of early childhood care and education settings are social emotional, children aren't getting the benefits because they quote unquote can't play with other
Yeah.
children at that age.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my problems of Parton's stages of play is that so many theories set it out to be strictly linear and strictly age confined. And I just don't think human development really works that way. I love a good theory. I love being able to look at something a human being does through a lens of some kind of wondering why or what. But I think that her stages of play, I don't know, I just haven't found them to be super helpful. And in this way, especially, I hadn't heard that as an argument explicitly, but that is what I hear, once they're old enough to need social uh, interaction, then we'll start them somewhere, Um, infants and toddlers can be very social.
Yeah.
And there's more to it than just, but also 3, 4, and 5-year-olds are still really working on cooperative play. Like it doesn't just magically happen on your third birthday. Suddenly you have all the skills of cooperation and all the interest in being with others. And let's not even talk about how neuronormative cooperative play ideas can be.
Oh, absolutely. Oof, yeah, I didn't even touch that one. Put a pin in that one, though. That would be a very interesting episode. Now it's my turn to say put a pin in it.
The tables have turned. Maybe you really will, because I never do.
I wasn't going to follow up with that part, but it was in my head. Um, so really, when I started looking at this and trying to dig into what I could find about this, the most definitive studies I could find really focused on looking at the cortisol levels in children. Heather, what do you know about cortisol?
I believe it's something in your brain,
Yes.
sort of maintains some emotional and mental well-being. Uh, and that's as far as I can go right now. Because what am I thinking of? I was thinking of something else.
So
But
you are
it's like emotional management, right? It's
the end product of the activation of the pituitary adrenal axis. So when
look
you've
at
been
you.
exposed to stress, you're going to have cortisol.
Right, that's what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Levels
You
higher or
were,
lower are your stress
yes, more or
measurements.
less.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's super interesting about cortisol that I learned is, so like you go to the doctor, you get a blood draw, and they look for like your blood sugar, your iron, whatever, and there are pretty agreed on regular levels.
Yeah.
Those levels exist for cortisol, but they're huge. There's a lot more intra-individual and inter-individual variability than for a lot of other measurements.
Yeah.
So
Dopamine's what I
this,
was thinking of, by the way. But I'm with you now.
oh, okay. Yeah,
I
they're
had the
all
whole wrong word in
neurotransmitters.
my brain. Yes, cortisol, stress. Yes.
um, cortisol is related to learning though. So there's what's called positive stress, which is a small increase, and that is related to learning. So that positive stress is positive. Um,
Aptly
so
named.
yes, well done, Harvard. um, so typically the cortisol levels are higher in the morning when you first wake up, and they decrease throughout the day. And what I read in these studies was for children in childcare, either they do tend to decrease a little bit less throughout the day, or they actually peak a little bit more in the afternoon. One thing that I thought was really interesting that they did call out was that they took these samples at regular times over the course of 4 months, so 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. But they didn't control for food or sleep. So that 3 p.m. cortisol time could have been right when the kids woke up. So it's possible. They did say that with further analysis, it was unlikely to have had a significant effect, but it is possible that that higher cortisol level could have been somewhat influenced by having just woken up. The 10 a.m. check, less so, but again, they don't know exactly when the children woke up for the day, right? Childcare, they said in their studied centers started around 7 a.m. So they assumed the children were up from between 5 and 6 a.m.
Yeah.
But they don't.
What age are we? This
that.
is specific infants, toddlers in this
Yes.
studies.
So
yeah.
this first
So they could have had a 10 a.m. nap. You don't know. We don't know. If
That's
it's a
true.
baby. Yeah.
They were slightly older. So again, this was in Norway. So I want to say the youngest children studied were 10 months old. So it's very possible they could have had a morning nap.
Well, okay.
But it didn't, either way, it didn't control for that. And it did say, and this did check during days at childcare and days at home. So what I didn't find yet, maybe I didn't look hard enough, was cortisol levels for children who are only cared for by a parent or in their home, right? So looking at parental care in the home, non-parental care in the home, or group care, and those cortisol levels. So they did compare it to days in childcare and days at home, and the days in childcare, it was generally a little bit elevated. Now, there were a couple of minor-ish drawbacks to the studies, right? So one of the things that was one of the things that they cited was this was done broadly middle class children in Norway who already had very high well-being scores.
Okay.
So even though there was this increase, they don't know what that would have looked like in other populations. So that's just something to note, and the reason that it's important when we're looking at something like this to study varied populations from varied places, and also acknowledging that, it's hard to do that from just one space, right? We need a whole
Yeah.
body of research to answer these questions. One of the things that was particularly interesting from these was ratio. So it did say that one of the bigger predictors of cortisol levels was a ratio of 3 children to 1 caregiver. And this one did, sorry, let me look. I should have written this down and I didn't. This was children from I
No
want to
one's
say it
going
was
to
up
fact
to
check you.
37 months. Sorry.
Okay.
um, and so it looked at, the caregiver ratio. So they were at, the biggest difference happened when the caregiver ratio exceeded 3 children to 1 caregiver. For children who are almost 3.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
Uh,
That's so interesting. And you pointed out the contextual considerations at the beginning of the episode, but this is one of my things that makes my head explode in conversations about quality is because I think pretty indisputably everything I've looked at about what really is like quality and beneficial has a really low adult-child ratio. But that's expensive to do in real life in a childcare setting. So we push that to the side and we invent our own definitions of quality, like 3 to 5 math materials on a shelf.
right.
It just makes me crazy.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it did say it did note in the article about the context, right, where they noticed a more significant drop when it exceeded 3.5 to 1, which again is
Bringing that half adult.
mind-boggling from an American context.
Yes.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
have a child.
Yeah, have a child. Yeah.
But it did note that that was a very low ratio in the global
I mean, and
context, and so
we're going the opposite direction in a lot of states
yes,
now here in the US. We're deregulating and loosening up ratios to as a response to our childcare crisis.
right.
And but still saying, but we only want quality.
You know, it's how you define quality, like you were just saying.
Yeah. And listen, I could probably have 10 toddlers and show them a nice time and be very warm with them all and be fine. Would I want to? No. And would it be the highest quality? No. It doesn't matter that I'm really good at toddlers.
Right. And I think that's tricky because I know certainly when I was doing family childcare, I was
Yeah.
way above that 3 to 1 ratio, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I did okay. I
Yeah,
feel like I did
right.
pretty well.
Yeah.
Right. And also like, oh, there's this data saying that, you know, here's a point where that probably wasn't the best thing for those kids, right?
Yeah.
And it comes down to the finances, right? If I was taking,
Yep.
so this was almost 10 years ago, but subsidy at that point was $89 a week for a child.
Rolling.
And a third of my kids were on subsidy and the rest were private pay and not paying a whole lot more. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
to live, there were ratios that I needed to maintain to
Right. Yeah.
exist. So it's all, if we made policies based on what was best for children, it would look very different.
Exactly. Yes.
um, Cortisol. Oh, and so the other piece is behavior, right? So we talked a little bit about stress and cortisol levels but behavior, right? So have you heard people say that kids in childcare are, they hit more, they kick more, they're more aggressive?
I have heard that. Um, and I mean, probably if the two things we're measuring are a toddler at home or in even family friends family friend care, and a toddler who is spending hours with age equal peers,
Mhm.
then it's not a surprise that you'd see that there'd be more of that in a group because the opportunity is not there and the stuff is not there that would cause it when they're not in a group of their peers. But I don't know that
Yes.
that's uh uh something. I don't How do I want to say it? There's a word that's escaping me. Two words in one episode that I can't do right. Um, it's not necessarily indicative of childcare being evil in some way. It's
Ding, 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 ding,
you put a bunch
ding.
of people with similar developmental levels and experience on Earth, limited experience on Earth, and you put them together, you're going to see.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. It's a whole other thing.
No, you had it.
Yeah.
So I was looking at this study that is huge, but primarily based in Europe. So again, the context matters.
Oh
And this looked at 87,000 parent-child dyads.
my
Um,
gosh.
so
That's
it
a
was a
pretty good
huge
size.
meta-analysis. Yeah. So again, context obviously matters, but what they found was children who attended childcare from birth to 3. Now, this is where that sampling gets a little fuzzy because it was truly any time between birth and 3. So it doesn't
Mm,
really single out that, you know, infant toddler
mhm.
cohort.
Yeah.
But it found that children who attended center-based childcare had lower levels of internalizing symptoms. And this is where I'm going to give you another pop quiz on internalizing versus externalizing symptoms. Do you want to take a stab at it or do
No,
you want me to throw it?
no, you just do that one.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's
externalizing
sort of just
symptoms.
what it says, like externalizing, you're acting out on the people around you, the things around you. Internalizing, it's just all your secret,
See, you got it. Yeah.
your your fun little secret process.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Okay,
depression,
perfect.
anxiety,
Yeah.
low self-esteem.
Yes.
You nailed it. You didn't need me for that.
Nice. Thanks.
So children who attended center-based childcare had lower levels of internalizing symptoms in all age groups from 5 years old up through 13 years old.
Wow.
This did find informal childcare attendance was associated with higher levels of internalizing symptoms between 7 to 9 and 10 and 13 years.
Hmm.
But it didn't distinguish professional from non-professional informal care.
Yeah. Okay.
So a nanny who's taken some child development training versus grandma who hasn't and is maybe a little old school, right? It's
Right. Yes.
different.
Yeah.
um, so I thought that was super interesting because I had heard similar, right? The externalizing that aggression is going to be more apparent.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think I'd seen anything previously that made claims later on. I think it was really just like, well, you've got a kid in preschool, they're going to be, hitting and kicking and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Huh. I mean, it's this comes up a lot when I'm listening to people talk about like biting in a toddler group,
Mhm.
and the professionals are saying mom's in denial because we said he's been biting and she says they never see it at home and that just can't be true. Well, of course it can be true
Hi, that
because
was my
that kind of
kid.
those actions are contextual, right? If there's no one at home competing, or there's different sensory levels at home, or there's different attunement at home, of course you're not going to see the kind of stuff. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we just shut the door on group care. It means there are things we can do in group care to try and offer the same things that are preventive and protective.
Right, exactly. And again, that's probably related to ratios, but
Yes, yeah, yeah.
not always. There
And
are certainly a lot of
qualification,
other
skill
training.
level, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that was the other thing that I wanted to hit on with the
Adult
Norwegian
stress level.
studies. They looked at the number of educators with bachelor's degrees. They separated out pedagogues who have bachelor's degrees and caregivers who don't. And
Okay.
that was not a factor in children's
Really?
cortisol. Yeah, which
Yeah.
wasn't a shock to me, but
Interesting. Yeah, that is, but no, that's interesting. I don't know that I'm surprised, but yeah. I mean, just because I've worked with people with degrees that,
right.
and I did it for almost 20 years without a degree.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
that I didn't learn anything or seek information out or whatever. But that, and as a professor now, I shouldn't say that, but
No, I mean it's true. It goes back to the temperament, and now it's
mhm.
my turn to forget a word. There's what is it?
Disposition.
It's yes, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll just
And
take turns knowing words.
I love it. This is teamwork right here. This is collaboration. Right. So having those dispositions
Mhm.
in collaboration with the knowledge, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because they do support each other. Um, One that I thought was interesting. So in this large birth cohort study in Europe, it did look at um, no, it said that a meta-analysis reported no association between the number of hours spent in center-based childcare and children's externalizing symptoms prior to 5 years of age. So that one was different than
Okay.
what we've been saying.
Yeah.
I do you want to look a little more closely at that? I just that one does surprise me having done group care, right? um, and I guess I haven't spent a ton of time with kids who aren't in group care for some portion of the time, so maybe it's just kind of an easy um, connection for caregivers to make.
Yeah.
Like my second son started in family child care right after his first birthday, and my mother-in-law, who had been caring for him, was with him one day a couple weeks later, and she said, "Oh, he learned how to throw tantrums from the other kids." I said, "No, he's one now and would like
Yeah.
what he would like, and
Yeah.
will yell about it now." So it's
Yeah.
easy to claim there's a connection when maybe there is.
Right. Right. Well, because we go to what we're aware of. We go to our own assumptions when trying to find a reason for something that's changed. And so
Right.
that's dependent on the options we've been given or that we've gone out and searched for why things might
Right.
happen. You know what I mean? It makes perfect sense. Not that I wouldn't want to do anything about it, but it makes perfect sense that
Yeah.
um, it's like when the baby's brain has developed to a point where they start to understand that even if I can't see mom, she still exists out there somewhere. And so now they cry and they fuss a little bit, and mom might say, "Ooh, something bad must be happening at childcare because for months I've
Yes.
dropped them off without crying, and now suddenly they cry every day." And instead of it being some big, dangerous thing, it's just maturation and experience and brain development.
Right. That was the other actually claim for why some people said that they would rather delay external childcare until age 3 because of the belief that the child would be more verbal and better able to communicate to them if something was going wrong. And
If
I,
sure.
right. And I can't
Yeah, I've heard that one too.
dispute that.
Yeah.
And I did have a child go home from early Head Start and tell her mom that I was hitting her. And I kind of
Oh
I brought that up
no.
to mom because she then told me that she was telling mom that I was hitting her. I was like, hey, so she
Oh
told me
no.
this. Are you hearing this? She's like, oh, she says it all the time, but I know that's not true. So relationships, people.
Relationships. Oh wow.
um, all right, sorry. So we've gone a little over anticipated time. Was there
Okay.
anything that you wanted to call out? Was there anything you wanted to hit? What's your takeaway at the end of this? Are you still like, yes, infants and toddlers in childcare? Are you yes, universal
Well,
parental leave? All of the above?
I mean, I'm yes for families having an option, a workable, viable option to do what they want to do for their family. And, we can, I think the only reason for having a conversation about whether um, infants and toddlers should be in non-familial care or group care is so that group care can learn what we need to do better and strive for, and policy can be set. Because the reality is, until there's that parental leave, or until there's income equality, or housing and food insecurity has been abolished, people are going to have to take their children somewhere while they work. And so we can say, well, they shouldn't be there, so we shouldn't have it, or we shouldn't try to focus on what we know might contribute to positive development and protective factors and healthy outcomes because they just shouldn't be there in the first place. Well, that's a horrible place to start to take the conversation. But like parents who stay home with their children have a different set of stressors that can impact their children's development. Like it's just, it can't be either or. And to just say, it's maybe this is the goal of your whole show, Liz. It's when people just say, well, research says ... and the conversation ends there. What does that mean? How do we use it? What's it for?
Right.
So,
And yeah, exactly.
more than you
What's the
wanted,
agenda?
Yes.
No, that
yes,
was
that's the agenda.
perfect. You gave away the secret subtext of the show, which is let's look at what research says and why it says that, and what can we
Yes.
learn from it versus
Yeah.
what's just sitting in archives and journals.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important. And not everyone gets really super excited about printing off a research article and diving in. So they need conversations.
What do you
like
mean not everyone gets
yours.
super
What do you mean? I mean, there are some folks who just need a conversation like this to be like, oh, wait, there's more to it than that thing I heard or that Facebook post I read.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Heather, and listeners. And I will put the articles in the show notes, and we will be back again shortly with more deep dives on claims.